Mr. Bob Pollock is with us this morning from the Extension Service. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us here today. Been to the fair all week long?
Good.
Few times? Once or twice?
Yeah, once or twice.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Some of the things that we've been thinking about right now, it seems like, especially in these last few days, we're making a transition out of the summertime temperatures and into more fall-like. 46 degrees was the temperature when I got here this morning.
Very refreshing.
Yeah, is it really? You consider it that? I consider it to
at the moment
oppressive. But that being the case, we're soon going to be experiencing more fall weather, and probably not so long. We usually get at least a frost, a light one, in the month of September. When we make the turn to the 9th month of the year, there are changes out there in our yards and our gardens and our trees, aren't there?
There sure are.
Yeah. So that being the case, what are some of the things that we need to be thinking about for September? I know that when we get to the fall of the year, we think about fertilizing and some of those things. Is it time yet, or should we wait just a little bit longer?
Well, of course, we're precipitation-wise, with this last front that went through, we're like 2.1 inches ahead on the rainfall. Yeah. And that's not always the case, every year at this time. But that puts us in a good position, especially with lawns, if there's repairs needed, if you need to seed a new yard. Now's the best time of year, really.
No.
The soil needs to dry out a little bit, of course, but we're going to get some sunny days here, even though it's cooler, that we should have opportunity to do that. Mm-hmm. And again, why is this month the best time of the year?
I'm wondering that. Please answer.
To do that? Well, because we're moving into fall. We're going to have, of course, the days start to get shorter they've been getting shorter every day by about a minute. And temperatures will get cooler. And we usually have more moisture. And so that makes it a lot easier for grass to germinate and grow. And it's also a good time as we move into this season of the year to do fall planting as well. There's a lot of plants that can be planted, perennials, trees, shrubs, that can be planted this time of year for the same reasons, because there's not as much shock to the plant. There's not as much temperature extremes, not as much stress on plants. So it can be a good time to delve into that and take care of some of those. And it might be replacement things, and it might be things you want to add into a landscape, or maybe you're ripping everything out and putting in new. It can be a great time of year to do that.
That's a good time to do that.
Also less stressful on us. Not as hot, cooler.
As we think about in a month or so, bringing those outdoor plants we have on our patios indoors, is there a transition period for them as well to avoid the shock of losing their outdoor air and coming indoors where the air doesn't move as quickly? There's not as much moisture in it.
Yeah, and temperatures can be a lot of those plants that we're keeping in over the winter and putting out just in the summer are tropical type plants. Mm-hmm. So they're not used to these temperatures. They don't like temperatures down in the low 50s and into the 40s. So that can shock them.
Yeah.
So we just need to.
So should we be bringing them in at night now?
Like last night, it wouldn't have hurt if you can do that easily to move them in, or at least move them where they might a little closer to the house, where they might gain some heat off of structures, or they may still be getting some heat off patios, surfaces that tend to hold heat, and then release it later. Those places all can be good for now. And, of course, when you get in a town setting is usually warmer versus when we get out of town in the country, like where you live.
Why are you pointing at me?
Just as an example, it can get colder there a lot quicker and usually does. And so those areas and people that live in those areas are going to be paying more attention to that sooner than some people that live other places.
I think when we think about this season of the year as well, we begin to look at when winter weather gets here, and particularly the holidays and Christmas cactuses and some of the other things, the poinsettias and things of that nature. Is it yet time to move them indoors and begin to train them so that they'll be colorful in the holiday season?
Usually you need about 8 to 10 weeks for that process. So a lot of times we'll start that around the beginning of October.
Okay.
If you want them a little sooner. And then, of course, Thanksgiving, the cacti that, Thanksgiving cactus versus Christmas cactus.
Oh, yeah?
But usually the days are short enough. And we need uninterrupted nighttime darkness for that whole process to work well. If we interrupt it by turning on a light in the middle of the night, in that we need about 10 to 12 hours a day of darkness every day for that period to trigger those plants to bloom.
Okay.
And we don't want to interrupt that. If we interrupt it, then that just lengthens the time.
So basically, just count backwards from when you want
Yes.
them to bloom, and that's when you should know
When to start the process.
Start that whole process.
Start putting them in the closet or putting them in that room where it'll stay dark for all night long.
All right, so that all being the case, we do right now have an extended growing season, I think, for lawns because of the way that the weather has worked out this year. The lawns are still growing at the rate of the spring almost.
That's true.
And on top of that, the crabgrass is trying to make its statement as well. It's really an interesting proposition to get your lawn trimmed up, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, you got to keep after it. A lot of times we might have a 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 week period where we don't need to mow. Well, that didn't happen this year.
No, it did not.
Even though it got warmer, we still had moisture there, and that helped keep the turf going. And of course, crabgrass is an annual plant, so when we get a couple nice hard freezes, that will die. However, it will have made a lot of seed by that point, which will then drop and be there, hang over winter, and be there in the spring and early summer to germinate if we don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And of course, the preventative crabgrass control is the simplest, easiest way to deal with that. But yeah, if you do have crabgrass in there now, if it's just a little bit, you can always dig it out, cut it off. If it's too much, you can just keep mowing
green.
it. Yeah, at least it's green. You can keep mowing it because it's going to die.
Yeah.
And then you can rake it out when you rake leaves in the fall.
I have a question for you that I don't think I've ever asked before, but I know that there are people in the same boat. A red maple tree, beautiful tree. Those are really nice trees. But down through the years, the roots have sort of made their way to the surface. And is there a danger to the tree from the fact that the roots are now so much up on the surface that I used to be able to just mow right underneath it? Now I can't because of the roots that are sticking up the whole way around the tree. Is there a danger to that tree simply by their exposure?
Not just by the exposure, no. They'll keep going like that. Of course, the roots, like the trunk and the branches, continue to grow in girth every year. And so part of that, originally you didn't see those roots. And then now as that tree ages and grows, then some of those roots that were right there on the surface now are more so on the surface, or parts of them.
They're up above the surface.
Yes, and so they'll still be able to function just fine as long as we don't mess around with them too much or try to run over them with the lawnmower and nick them up and hack them. And
don't do that.
Don't do that because that's an injury. That's going to damage the outer covering, which helps protect those roots, and then they're not going to function the way they need to.
But I owe my red maple a shot or two because it knocked me out cold one year.
When you forgot the duck.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. I went underneath that baby, got knocked out cold.
It wasn't funny at the time. We can laugh about it now.
It's kind of bloody at the time, and the tractor kept going with me on it out cold. So yeah, I owe that baby a shot.
Fortunately, that's all that happened, right?
I think. I don't remember.
Yeah.
The concussion that resulted from that lasted a while. But yeah, that's something that people look at, that, trees evolve. The life of a tree, it changes down through the years, and you wonder, okay, well, now that it's entered this new stage, or evolved into this new stage, slowly entered it, what are some of the things I need to know about it?
Yeah, and we can leave that situation alone. In a lot of cases, when that's happening, the grass the grass has died off in those areas.
Yeah, it's
as
bare
well.
underneath there because there's no light getting to
Yeah,
it.
so it's the tree's dense enough that it shades the ground. The grass no longer grows. So you don't have to, you can stay away from it, which is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
And you can just leave it alone like that. Sometimes they'll still make a larger mulched ring around there just with a light layer of mulch, just enough to level things out a little bit. We're not trying to bury all that.
Got to go in with the string trimmer and take
Yeah.
care of the shaggy stuff.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. He's Bob Pollock from the Extension Service. You can give the office a call if you have a question, 465-3880, and he'll get right back to you. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. You also.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM and AM 1160 FM and AM 1160.